This is the most important shit we have to do, and this is the end of the world. There's no time to do it. We will rest after we're dead. It looks like World War III is happening. It looks like the U.S. and Israel are going to attack Iran over the weekend, maybe early next week. It's the end of everything.
Crumbs. My first question was going to be about the banking switch off that's happened to Iran, which has happened just a couple of minutes ago at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Got taken out of the SWIFT system. I mean,
everything. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm totally familiar with it. That's what I do. We're on top of all this shit. I know exactly what's going on. I'm probably a little further ahead than you. So, as we enter this weekend right now, the SWIFT banking transfer, which is a devastating blow to Iran because it really kind of cripples Iran's ability to move any kind of currency around the world, was motivated because Iran is successfully moving the world away from U.S. dollar hegemony. Iran, backed by China and Russia, has successfully stymied the U.S. and Israel for months now, embarrassing the West. But as we see the global economy collapsing at an unbelievable rate and oil prices soaring to the highest point ever, we have $10 gasoline in Paris now. There's nothing left to lose for anyone. So we have entered a point of insanity. I'm just reading stories that I stopped reading to do this interview that show that the U.S. Navy has mobilized everything it needs to control the Straits of Hormuz. It's all en route. And that the Israeli cabinet, I haven't had a chance to read the story yet, has voted 6-2, I believe it is, to attack Iran immediately. So we are off the cliff now, and no one can know what the world's going to look like in just a few days or a week. If the United States and Israel attack Iran, China immediately is committed to Iran's military defense, as is Russia. This is World War III. It can go no place but to a nuclear exchange.
Well, great. That's put a little kink in my day. But
I've been saying it consistently for 9 years. Russia has stated unequivocally in writing that it will militarily support. Now, this will also include an attempted regime change against Assad in Syria. Syria and Iran have a mutual defense pact. They have to unseat Assad because Syria borders Israel, and Hezbollah and all the Iranian allies in Syria can cause Israel enormous damage. So it's a package. And Russia and China have made it clear that they will not tolerate this. Nonetheless, the U.S. and Israel in full retreat around the world, the U.S. getting its butt kicked thoroughly in Afghanistan right now, and the U.S. prestige failing around the world along with the U.S. economy. Somebody has decided there's nothing left to lose.
Is that process unstoppable?
It looks to be unstoppable. No one can tell you the exact military plan. That's too much to ask of me or anybody. What it looks like is because there are 3 aircraft carrier battle groups now in the Gulf. I'm assuming the Enterprise has arrived on station. As soon as that happens, the airstrikes against Iran will be launched from aircraft carriers rather than from land bases, because as I've been saying also for a decade, any attack from Israel or Saudi or other bases has to fly over Saudi Arabian or Iraqi airspace, and that will not be allowed.
Right.
So they have to launch from the Gulf. Now, missiles will be launched from everywhere, but this battle scenario is pretty much all laid out now. Iran has, also nothing to lose, and Iran's response to the SWIFT shutoff, which I don't think it's able to work around, will be an immediate oil embargo on Europe. The price of oil will add $10, $15, $20 overnight. That will kill the European economy and the global economy. So nobody has anything left to lose. Everybody is reaching for the fuck it button.
So, how's your in the midst of this mayhem? How is your own personal lifeboat? How does it feel?
Well, I'm in an absolutely wonderful place here in Sebastopol on 2.5 acres where we have knitted, in the year that I've been here, an exceptionally tight community. Of all places in the world, this is where I would, this is where I want to be, and you know, there is no place else to run. But of course, we all have to understand that in the event of a large nuclear exchange, there is no place to hide. All life on this planet is in jeopardy at this moment.
You know, you talk a lot about how there has to be a revolution in thinking. There has to be a new way of being in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How do those two things work together? Your certainty that that World War III is unfolding, and also you being on the ground there, you know, with growing your artichokes.
Well, nuclear war kind of trumps everything, doesn't it? I mean, that's so. You know, I keep doing what I'm doing. I keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's all anybody can do at a time like this.
I saw a cartoon in the FT yesterday in which two bankers were talking to each other, and one banker says to the other, "I'm so morally bankrupt that I don't even care if I'm morally bankrupt or not." I mean, do you see this whole situation as a moral bankruptcy? Do you see the financial bankruptcy as a moral bankruptcy?
I see this world as unbelievably ill, sick.
Yeah.
I see this as a disease. A combination of mental illness and you know, the people that are doing this understand the consequences, and again, over the course of a lifetime of trying to understand this, I can just say that these people are evil, and evil is on the field, and there is no other way to approach or to understand it conceptually that allows you to keep some kind of sanity, except for to understand that this is absolute evil.
Jamie Dimon, the head of J.P. Morgan, was described in terms of in a blog on Zero Hedge, a guest blog, as being like an incontinent man, which is what Aristotle called a man who knows what he's doing is wrong and still plows ahead and does it. So
yes.
That's the root of what's going on. It's people that know the consequences, that know what they're doing, and still they're doing it.
Take a look at Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. They knew that they were going to lose the war from Stalingrad in January of 1943, and yet they continued becoming ever more aggressively evil and deadly until the end. It is a sad part of human nature. It is part of I think a spiritual balancing which is taking place, which is epical. It doesn't have to do with the 20th century. It has to do with 40,000 years of human existence. And fundamental assumptions based upon fear and greed and accumulation and the infinite growth paradigm, all coming to a very logical and predictable end.
So in all of that, in that huge epochal change, as you say, an event like 9/11, for example, must seem almost small if you're looking in those terms. Even though it's also hugely emblematic of a massive evil.
Well, that's why I wrote Crossing the Rubicon, because on 9/11 it was clear, and that's the whole point of a book that was published now almost 8 years ago, my book, which was that unless we address that then, this current set of circumstances was absolutely unavoidable. Unless we got to the root cause, and we, the human race, did not. And I said it clearly in the book, and that's why I walked away from the 9/11 truth movement in 2004. It had been hijacked by dilettantes, disinformation artists, COINTELPRO. It had been spun by the government, and any ability to effectively address 9/11 disappeared with the presidential election in 2004, legally and otherwise. That's why I walked away and left it completely, because it was obviously going to produce no results. The human race has never mustered the courage to clean up all of its errors, its mistakes, its rationalizations, its lies, and for that, all 7 billion of us carry some responsibility.
And yet there are people, and you're obviously one of the foremost, who are doing their little bit to try and dismantle what we think we know. I mean, crossing the Rubicon was obviously a massive piece of dismantling the myth that had been built up around 9/11. And there are people trying to dismantle people's misperception of the world. I mean, when you're talking to someone, I don't even know whether you still worry about raising people's awareness or whether you're dealing with your own kind of situation. I mean, I heard you say it's too late if you're not on board. Now it's too late. But how would you say to someone? How would you begin dismantling someone's belief in what's going on is normal and fine and good?
It makes no difference now, man. It is too late. I will not waste my time on zombies. They're going to die anyway. We may all die. Anybody who wants to spend time trying to convince somebody, think the process through. You convince one person, so how much closer does that put you to resolving the fundamental crimes that the human race never had the will to address to begin with?
Well, I mean,
it's a wasted effort now.
Well, you say that. I mean, you appeared in the film Collapse, and that film and your appearance in it did an enormous amount of good, I think. And that's not just one person talking to one person. That is using the media to talk to more than one person. But still, you're thinking, you're seeing the US warships move into the Straits. You're thinking there's not worth talking to people now? Or do you think you will always go on talking to people? Because you're still talking to people. You're talking to me.